What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So this is a news story that I've been anticipating for a while now. Now, I'm not saying that I knew this was happening, but I had a slight feeling that this was going to happen eventually. We have finally gotten the word that T3, the Vekoma suspended looping coaster at Kentucky Kingdom, is closing for good. Or to say, has closed for good, as it is not opening this year at all. So, T3. It opened in 1995 as T2, the same exact ride but a different theme, and it meant terror to the second power. It operated under three owners, Six Flags, Herschend, and Ed Hart. It also stood SB&O for 5 years. This ride has lasted a lot longer at the park than some of the other roller coasters that opened in the 90s there, like Twisted Twins and Chang. But nonetheless, this ride made it a while. And famously, even the park under Ed Hart made fun of the ride itself. Despite that, it did continue to gain some popularity from the general public. We know that the ride is shutting down, and we really didn't get anything else in the message besides that, and that there is more coming this summer. There were no final rides, and like I said, what happens now is completely unknown. Will it still be up by the season's opening? We do not know too much. I think this is a very interesting story in so many ways, but something that makes it twice as interesting as it would before is that this park is under relatively new owners. Like I said, Herschend bought this park in 2021. Herschend, to say the least, is a massive chain with a massive amount of money to spend on all their parks. So, what are we going to talk about in this video? Well, one, we are going to be talking about what's replacing T3, and why this is a lot bigger of a story than you may think at this point. And two, my personal thoughts on the ride. This is Cedar Flags, and today, we are going to be looking at what's replacing T3 at Kentucky Kingdom, and why this is a really big deal. So, I do a lot of videos when rides get announced to close and talk about what's replacing those rides. But, this is a little bit different of a story. Let's look at a ride like Wicked Twister at Cedar Point. It's on a plot of land, there's a beach to one side of it, and a park to the other. So, the thing that I will be talking about in that video is just the plot of land that the ride sits on. And looking at the plot of land for this ride, it's an SLC. It contained almost 2 acres at 1.7 acres, and it was flat land. Now, that's all interesting, but there is a little bit of a secret behind this ride. Unlike some of the other roller coasters I talked about, this ride has a massive plot of land completely unused behind this structure, and T3 has been blocking the rest of the park from a lot of land. With the ride shut down and removed, it is going to open up a massive plot of land, approximately 6.5 acres. Now, if you don't know how to visualize that, that is around the size of Storm Chaser and Thunder Run combined. So it's a pretty big area and can fit more than just one attraction. And with Herschend buying the park and instantly removing this ride just after a couple years, I could easily see something bigger than just a roller coaster being put in this area. Now, I'm not saying a roller coaster won't be in this area, but I'm saying that that roller coaster would be complemented by a new Midway and a brand new area. So that is what I predict in this video. I think that we are going to see a new area. Now, not a massive area, but an area that will make the park a better and more charming place. We will see new paths, new shops, new rides, and possibly a new coaster. So in the next part of the video, I want to talk about what this Midway could consist of. So, like I said, T3 opens up a massive plot of land, 6.5 acres approximately. And this is located, if you don't know, in the back of the park, in between the water park and the amusement park. They blend in together if you don't know, so you could basically add anything here. But for the sake of this video, I think that they are going to expand the amusement park, only because they are getting rid of one of the most popular attractions at the park. And that's what a lot of enthusiasts don't realize. When they look at T3, they think of just a clone, an SLC, a ride that's not really that great. But when I was at the park both times, this had the longest line in the park. Now, I'm not saying it's the most popular, but it definitely still gets crowds. So I think, without a doubt, this new area is going to be highlighted by a big roller coaster. But other than that, I think there is going to be at least one flat ride or two. I also think this area will be complemented by at least one very unique shop and restaurant. Herschend is known for their great architecture and amazing shops and restaurants, and I think they will implement this in some sort of way. What type of roller coaster would work best for this area? Well, I think that it would be one out of two, or both of these categories. 1. A launch coaster. The park hasn't had a launch coaster in over a decade, and then a coaster that focuses on inversions. Looking at the currently existing coasters in the park, the only one that goes upside down is Storm Chaser. And that ride's main focus is not inversions, but instead crazy pacing and airtime. T3 had that inversion focus, so without it, we don't have an inversion-based ride in the park. The first coaster I want to look at is a modern Vekoma launch coaster. Now, I know I talk about these a lot for almost every park, but when I talk about a Vekoma launch coaster here, I think that this would be one of the best fits for one of these rides. Herschend works a lot with Vekoma, especially recently. They are opening up a Vekoma known as Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood, and I would imagine something like that, but bigger. Think of a ride like Abyssus at Energylandia. It could have a decent amount of inversions and have a bit of airtime as well. I could see them focusing more on inversions because, like I said, this park doesn't have an inversion-based coaster anymore. The second type of coaster I want to look at is not a launch coaster, but the gimmick I think makes up for that. This is the Vekoma Tilt Coaster. Now, after years of speculation, this ride is coming back. It's going to be very pleasing to the eye when that tilt track goes into effect, and the rest of the ride is going to be extremely thrilling as well. I think that this would make up for the lack of a launch, and I think that this would be one of the greatest and most diverse roller coasters at the park. The third one I want to look at is a mock launch coaster. Now, it could be one out of two things. It could either be a stationary mock coaster, something similar to Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, or Helix at Liseberg. But, like in my Kings Island video, I think a better fit would be a mock extreme spinner. This park does not have a spinning coaster, and so, why not fill in a few gaps? Inversion based, launching, and spinning. Remember, the original schematic of the ride was a very tiny layout, so they can make it a lot smaller than some of the others, but still make it just as thrilling. The final type of coaster I want to look at is a Gerstlauer looping coaster, whether it be a Gerstlauer Eurofighter or a Gerstlauer Infinity. I think both of these would work very well. Now, when it comes to the lines at the park, I think maybe a Eurofighter would work better, but Gerstlauer has been pushing the Infinities a lot more recently. With a park as popular to enthusiasts as this, how innovative are they going to get? These rides could have launches very similar to rides like TMNT Shellraiser, and could have beyond vertical drops, which would be a new thing for Kentucky Kingdom as well. This, like the Mock Extreme Spinner, could fill in a lot of gaps and barriers that the park has never seen. So finally, I want to get to my personal thoughts on this ride. I was lucky enough to get a ride on this Vekoma SLC before it closed, and I got to ride this twice. Once in 2020, and once in 2021. When I first rode it in 2020, but fortunately when I came back to this park in 2021, I got both a redemption visit and a redemption ride. I got to ride this near the back this time, and I got to experience a fairly good SLC ride. Now, I am rather a fan of these SLCs, and this ride was pretty good compared to some of the other ones. I would love to see this ride, or at least the trains of this ride, get relocated to some other park. But with the management, I don't think that's too likely. Nonetheless, the layout is pretty bland. It's a Vekoma SLC, a very common clone, and at the same time, I feel like the ride is a bit of an eyesore, especially for a Herschend park. That all-red color scheme mixed in with the rest of the vibrant, colorful park just doesn't really sit right with me. It's a weird sight to look at. With that being removed and a whole Herschend-style Midway being added with a new state-of-the-art coaster, this will make the park a much better and prosperous place. So, what do you think is going to replace T3? If you got to ride T3, let me know about it in the comments below. Like I said, I think it was a good ride. Just good, not great. And I am kind of glad overall that this ride is being removed when it comes to business decisions, because Herschend knows what they are doing. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe, and check in the description for other links including social media accounts and my merchandise store. Until next time, this is Cedar Flags, and I will see you all later.
The plane!